Good morning and welcome to Table Talk with Brenda Perryman. It's nice doing a joke off the camera. Then the camera comes on and they can't get you back. But I'm happy to be here
Great to see
again
you.
this morning. And we have a great show and we have some great conversation for you. I'd like my co-hosts to introduce themselves first.
Hi, good morning. I'm Darren Calhoun, supervisor investigator with
Are you
DPOC.
sure?
Today, yes. I'll let you know.
Chris Summerall. I am a public servant for the citizens of the city of Detroit, and I'm not sure of that either. So.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah.
And I'm Robert Thomas, the Vice Chairman of the City of Detroit Board of Zoning Appeals.
Is that all? But you were pretty definite on that.
Yeah.
And I'm Brenda Perryman, former teacher and other things. But first, as is our tradition, on this day in African American life in the city of Detroit, on this day, September 5th, Reginald Larry is born in Detroit. He will earn a bachelor's degree, and this was in 1928, a bachelor's degree from Upper Iowa University, a master's degree from Marygrove College, and a doctorate from Western Michigan University. Larry will pen Corners of Black History and serve for many, many years as a Black History instructor at Wayne County Community College District. And also on this day in 1975, the Jackson Five's Dancing Machine album is released. Dance, 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 dance. Didn't they do the?
1975.
Oh, wow.
Do you remember that, Robert?
I remember it. I wasn't born, but yeah, I remember it.
Oh.
We got jokes.
Well, the others remembered. I don't see why you shouldn't.
Saw them at the State Fair.
Yeah.
Saw
Oh.
the Jackson 5 do that at the
I,
State Fair.
I was getting
In
off
silver.
second shift at Ford. I saw that.
Okay, they have jokes this morning, but what we're not going to joke about is the fact that is this really President Obama's moment of truth? The world has been in a lot of turmoil with ISIS beheading people and everything. And Darren, you had something on your Facebook status the other day that said, why do they go in? Why do these journalists go into those places?
Well, first of all, I don't get it. And it may be me. I've had some people come to me and say they might not be journalists. They might not be doing just journalism work. And that sounds plausible. But if I know that there is a country that is hostile to United States citizens, the State Department says United States citizens should not go. You know that if they do catch you, and you've seen what they've done, if they do catch you, then why risk your life like that? Now, I've had a lot of people tell me, oh, it's a job, and being a journalist is really, that's what they want to do, and they're trying to get that Pulitzer, or they're trying to get that great story, but and I don't know. I don't know the mentality of a journalist. I'm not a journalist.
Well, having been a journalist and probably the only one on this panel, I could speak to that. I've gone to a lot of places to get stories, but I won't go to war. I am a coward. But there's some people who will go in there. I remember during the Vietnam War, Dan Rather was all up in there. He could have got his head shot off. I said, how can they do that? But some of them do that. Now, what you just said is totally plausible that they could be in there doing some other kind of work
Right.
too.
Now, if we were at war with Syria, where they had tanks and guns and soldiers around them, American soldiers around them, then I would see that, like Dan Rather probably stayed on the side of the United States.
Well, if you look at some of his film, yeah, he stayed on the United States side, but look at Richard Engel. Richard Engel on Channel 4, I mean,
NBC.
no, NBC. He's on, that's Channel 4 here, and MSNBC. He's all out there. He is not protected necessarily by Americans. And a few months ago, he was captured, but he was let go. So that could happen to any of them. I say, how does he do that?
Right.
But anyway,
No,
President Obama, people are talking about he's been such a lightweight on this, but I think he's erring on the side of caution not to rev up the dialogue. What do you all think?
Well, I think this is his moment of truth. No, I don't think so. I think his moment of truth has been many moments as they, it was many questions before. Is this his moment of truth on the health care bill? Is this a moment of truth on the jobs bill? Is this a moment of truth dealing with other countries and terrorists like ISIS? It's always going to be, someone's always going to select his moment of truth for him. I don't think it is. I believe that
How
he
do you
does
think
have a
he's-
strategy with ISIS. He's not going to share with anybody.
Right.
It's just
I
like
agree. I agree.
with Osama bin Laden. He didn't share that with
Well,
anybody. He
I
just
know.
calmly let it go.
I
Hey,
know.
And there's
got him, captured him, and released him in the sea. And just like he's been dealing with everything else, with the healthcare bill, got that done. Everything. The end of the day, he gets it done. Jobs, we're down at 6.1%
6.1
today.
this morning. That's right.
Oh, I didn't
We
hear
get it,
that.
He got it done.
Oh, I
He's
am
getting it
so
done.
happy.
He's getting it done. He's not going to tell you his strategy.
Oh, I
Now,
agree
there's
with
an
you.
old adage that says still waters run deep.
Ah, deep.
So
I
if he just
know.
stays
I've
quiet
had some
now,
boyfriends like that. Oh, anyway.
Talking about Obama? Oh, I'm sorry. When we had Bush as president, and everyone in the East called him the Buckaroo because he was always out shouting about what he was going to do, what he's going to do. Look how long we stayed in Iraq because he talked about what we were going to do. Look how
And
long
then
we
he,
stayed elsewhere.
remember he came in talking about mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished, and then 10 years later we were still there. So, I don't, so all that talk is one thing, but when someone is quiet, that's when you need to be concerned the most. Osama bin Laden thought that that President Obama was quiet, wasn't going to do anything. That's what he thought while he was still
Absolutely.
alive. And so the other Al Qaeda
My
leaders.
first indicator of that was that Captain Phillips situation when he had just been president for a few months, and they took that ship, those Syrian, not those pirates. Remember when those
Somalian
pirates?
yeah.
And he just said, "Kill them." I said, "Oh,
That's it. I mean,
he's a buster."
Well, I think that the president has been on trial ever since office, and
Yeah.
no matter which way the wind blows,
That's right.
it's going to be a controversy. And so I think that this isn't anything different. I think that obviously because you're dealing with loss of American or life, it ups the ante, and a new terrorist leader has come to the forefront of the world. This group ISIS, and I think that the opponents of the president are going to leverage whatever they can. If he would have been too aggressive, possibly they would have said,
He'd been
well,
blackmailed.
he's telling too much,
Yeah.
And so this is politics, and it's sad because you're talking about actually human life that has been lost, and individuals, due to their political affiliation or agenda, are using it strategically to either bolster or diminish a political position. So,
Yeah, I agree. If he says left, they're going to say right. But I tell you, he is building quite a legacy. He's building, because I had been watching that jobs thing, and I didn't get a chance to hear it this morning because I came in here early. But 6.1.
He added
142,000.
142,000 jobs this month. He's on a roll right now. He's going to get it down, and every month has been like
Positive.
100,000
Good job, bro.
Right.
so jobs been added to the American
Now, in
economy, so.
Econ 101, they said 5% was full employment.
Yeah.
So he still has a couple of years to get the country back to full
Right,
employment.
right. But look what it was
Look what
when
was
he
it,
came in.
9
Right. Well, look at
Did
what it
10
was.
And he's not going to, on top of that, he's not going to send in troops to combat some
Iraq.
terrorists like that. He's going to be everywhere.
He's gonna be-
what is the alternative than doing what he's doing right now and quietly, taking
the
these
thing
guys out? He
is-
took a top operative out the other day with amongst the ISIS terrorist community. He's just taking these guys out with his drones. He don't have to send
You
in
don't have to send him in. It just
any troops. He's just popping them off.
And,
one
and,
by
it's,
one.
and it's one thing that they're doing that ISIS and ISIL are doing is they're keeping their faces covered.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that they can't
and
get
they
to 'em.
say that the
But
guy
that's
who
fine.
did the beheading
Yeah.
was a British
British,
guy.
'cause his accent,
And that leads us into our next story where they said more than 100 Americans are fighting with the Islamic State. Of course, they have corrected that in the last 24 hours and say it's less than 100. But I believe it could be more than 100 who have just, and we talked about this a little last week, on how people, they find themselves a place with ISIL. And just like with the Republican Party, a lot of blacks find themselves being that unique person, and they find themselves built up with the Republican Party, so they could be that token or two Republican in the room where they say, see, we do embrace black people. But I just can't understand it. And then Joe Biden, who wants to run for president, he says we'll follow them to the depths of hell and all of this stuff. I said, golly, what is he trying to do?
Well, I think it is amongst probably a number of 100 to 300. In I think the article is stated that U.S. intelligence says it's probably about more like 300.
But they made a
people.
correction last
Oh,
night.
did they?
Since
Well,
I did.
you know, I think it is up there. You have a lot of people, even in America, that don't like their own country. I wouldn't really compare it to the Republican Party, and African Americans go to that party. I think it's crazy for an American citizen to go combat against America itself, to join a side of terrorists that's actually beheading and killing Americans and other people of other nationalities.
Absolutely.
And they don't care. You know, to get their point across, they're going to kill whoever they want to kill and behead them.
And I can see how possibly some people would justify it. While I don't understand it, there's innocent bloodshed on both sides of this. And so if we look at things objectively and not from a viewpoint of we
Emotions,
yeah.
like I look at them.
Yeah. So and when we think about the extreme loss of life, innocent life on both sides, there are room.
Well,
Chris,
let's
when
be
you
honest,
say
let's-
both sides, are you talking about like the ISIL people?
No,
or
what I'm
people
saying
in
is
the countries?
Well, I'm saying detractors from the United States and supporters. I think that while we benefit from the freedoms that the military forces provide for us, there's been an enormous loss of life, innocent life, that we can't just like wash over. We don't talk about it, but I mean, if you go on YouTube, you can just type it in and you see hundreds of thousands of little children that have been victims
Oh, yes,
of,
yes.
of these mortar
that's
shells
what I'm-
and things like that. So people can, if you're just looking at it from facts, we have blood on our hands as well.
We have a lot more blood on our hands because not only and we don't want to call it the United States, and I'm certainly one not to call it, but we don't call what United States does in countries across the world terrorism. We call it the advance of freedom.
But
and
if it was
democracy.
done over here,
If it was
we
done
would
over
we
here,
would look at things differently.
We have, and I've heard I heard on the radio this week how people are trying to equate what happens with African Americans being killed by police officers as a form of terrorism, especially like people like in Ferguson with this kid with his hands up and he's getting shot. The guy who just gets choked in New York, just for standing there or for for whatever. We're getting death sentences. So we certainly don't have the moral upper hand as we would like to say. We're not executing people on live television, but their execution is going on YouTube here.
Well,
so I guess I understand the mindset of somebody who is so radicalized. Now I'm a person,
or just affected in
or
a
just
different
affected-
way.
I'm
It's
a
not
person
necessarily
who absolutely
radical.
believes in the rule of law. I absolutely believe in that, and that's what we're talking about off camera. We got to believe in the system. Same thing we were talking about that person earlier.
And
you got to believe in the system. If the system say you didn't do it, even in that, I hate the fact that they I don't even like to say his name. That the guy that killed Trayvon Martin is walking around today because of the rule of law. Because there were people who said he was not guilty of that.
And the reason why that offends us is not because legally he has the right to walk around,
Right.
but morally we have a law
Exactly.
inside of us that trumps that. At least we feel it. And so my question is that one of probably the most or the biggest reason Americans feel the way that they feel is just because simply they were born in this country. If they were born in another country, then they would feel different. It's not as if those individuals over there are feeling that, well, yeah, of course the United States has to do this, or it's all about coincidence.
Yeah,
We
but
coincidence
they
just
have
so
100 people here to 300 that says otherwise. They were born in this country and they're going to fight against
that's
against the
that's not
country
even a
for
drop
another
in the that's not
nationality.
even a drop in the bucket.
Well, it's
I mean,
a,
when you
it's
talk
a-
about a
it's
country-
But it's
significant
important. It's
because-
important.
number that's
You know,
Because-
another reason
because
why.
all it takes is one to be here
Right.
to put us.
Oh,
And
no,
here's,
no,
the,
of course.
here's the other thing why it's important, because they're familiar with our land. And they're familiar with the
our
demographics,
infrastructure,
and
everything.
yes, they're familiar. And familiarity can cause a lot of damage. Now let's go in.
I want
Oh,
to say one more thing
okay.
on that, because I don't want it to get confused that what we do. Yeah, we don't have clean hands in the fight, but we're fighting terrorists. It's not like we're fighting another country. These are terrorists is hiding behind people within their families and things like that. But they're making top dog decisions to kill people. Period. So yeah, I mean, we're not going to send troops in there. We're about to send a missile
Yeah.
right in their house and just
Obliterate.
take the whole cell out.
And I agree with you, Rob. The only thing I say is we define terrorists
Right.
based off of
Our
our circumstances,
definition.
our
Exactly.
definition. But I'm sure if we went to another region in the world, the term terrorist would be defined differently than what we
No,
see.
I think they call them in Afghanistan. They still call them terrorists. They don't want those folks.
They
there.
may call Americans
Yeah,
terrorists
they
as
call-
well.
I'm sure they
so.
call them terrorists when we're sending billions of dollars into Afghanistan. Now, if we were sending hundreds of dollars into Afghanistan or not any, or no money at all, would they call them terrorists?
Right, right. Well, let's
so-
go on to the next topic.
It's just a sad situation.
The Ferguson Police Department and other police forces. Number one, they're going to have to start wearing cameras on their chests. But not only that, Eric Holder, he launched a big civil rights investigation on that police department, because it seems like that police department has been over and above what they should do in the black community. They've been going too far, like the man who, while they were beating him, got blood on a policeman's uniform and he got arrested. You got
Sorely
blood
in
on
the
his
uniform.
uniform. So I'm happy that that's happening. What about you?
Well, when I was in Tampa a couple weeks ago, and I was training new investigators, one of the investigators in my classroom was from St. Louis. He was from our St. Louis office, and we launched into a conversation about it. It was still fresh at the time, and the
Right.
protests were still going on. And I was explaining to him, I was like, "This is what you're employed for now. If you have a police force that only has 1 or 2% African Americans, but the qualified available labor pool around that is 75, 85% African Americans, that's a problem. That's an absolute problem. And that's what our agency is there to look for, the EEOC. And I heard about this with Eric Holder, and I'm certainly hope that our agency is getting involved in that, because that's, when you're policing a community or when you're serving and protecting a community, it's good to know who you're serving and protecting.
I remember now. Chris is a firefighter, and I remember where they had very few black firefighters. Remember that was a kind of closed career here in Detroit.
Definitely, it was built off of family, and so I actually had an opportunity. And Brenda, I believe you were there too. We went down and heard those stories about one of the first black firefighters
On my birthday.
Yeah, and so it hasn't been that long that a city as black as Detroit, even their public servants didn't reflect the population of the city. Less than 30 years ago.
They've had, I wrote a play that took place in 1925 on the Sweet trial, and one of the men in the house with Dr. Sweet was a black police detective. This is 1925, and he was a narcotics detective. Isn't that interesting? So, but they had a few, but they were in the black community, they were in Black Bottom. And I remember as a girl coming up, I never saw a black police officer when I was a little girl. I'm a couple years older than you all. And just two, remember.
Well, it brought on diversification. They saw the numbers, and I'm pretty sure
This
from
happened
higher ups,
after
Call me
the
young.
riot.
Call me
After
up.
the
Call me
riot.
up.
Just like you're going to see some changes here. And on top of that, I'm happy to see Eric Holder in that area. It was so many people that were, lambasting the president for not speaking out. Or
Right,
what's his response? Well, he's going to send his top dog attorney in that area to stir up some change. He didn't tell the people that what he was going to do. Once again, this was,
I love
low-key,
that.
and he sent them straight in there. Hey, make a
In
difference
the
right
middle
here.
of the-
They saw the disparities between with the percentages, 70% black in the community, but you have 100 to 90% to 100% white police force. There's a problem, and it wasn't just in Ferguson; it was in the surrounding
area
counties also.
Right.
It's they have a deep-seated history of some type of racial disparity when it comes to jobs and public service in that area.
And I think from a broader perspective, there's pockets like Ferguson all around the country. And to be more proactive, it may be a good idea for the different organizations or departments to look in before there's, there's an incident that causes so much pain and so much unrest. And so, I know there's communities here that we still aren't represented well as far as a ratio, a proper ratio. And there's communities here where we all know of, especially, this panel right here, there's 3 where we go in them and we don't feel comfortable. Not because we're breaking the law. And I'm talking about a police force. I'm talking about a specific police force in a certain municipality.
Okay, I look at the police force in Oak Park and in Southfield. Southfield has a black police chief. In Oak Park, they have, in Oak Park it's not a big city, but they have they've been adding a number of black police officers because the population shift.
Yeah.
It has happened, but that hasn't happened across the board.
No.
I know that when I got hired at Southfield, I'm going to say this, one of the things I said on my cover letter was, I'm able to handle students, especially boys, who might be difficult, because I knew that more black children were coming into the district of Southfield, and a lot of people don't know how to handle them. Sometimes they didn't handle them and they went wild. So they wanted more black teachers in there. I know how I got in there, but I think this is a good thing. I applaud Eric Holder. People hate Eric Holder. I mean, the Republicans hate him, but he's fearless. He is fearless. And also kind of connected with this, because we got so many issues to talk about this morning, and when we get to sports, you know how you all just drag it down. Michael Brown, you saw the 2 sources wanted his juvenile record to check and see if he had a felony, so that they are putting this child on trial all the time, and he didn't have any felony convictions as a juvenile. And then they're still talking, well, he had to have something. So they are already putting him on trial. They're defending. I have seen so many videos of them defending this police officer.
Right.
How do you defend it? You weren't there.
Again, this is just a terrible situation where the biggest story is taking a back burner, and the loss of this young man's life has been pushed aside for what is essentially politics. Politics, that's what it boils down to, because this is a white officer that in some of our minds represent a certain faction, authority, and then there's a young black man. And the nation, I really feel this a tension in our country that is building and building and building.
It is.
That is very, very uncomfortable. Very, very uncomfortable.
Race is big, and I'm telling you,
Race is back.
I mean, it's back. It's so overt now.
Yeah,
never left.
It never left.
Yeah, but
Right.
it's in the
got
forefront.
It got worse under Bush, and then when President Obama came out, it became
He came out.
fashionable to
He
hate again.
came out
Well,
like
when he
the
came- when he
latest
came-
fashion,
well,
huh?
You know, exactly. But in 2004, when they saw this skinny black man giving that speech, people got scared, and so it became fashionable to hate again. They had to find a way to knock this man off of his tier. That hate never left. from the underbelly, it was just kind of suppressed. Now
Yes.
it's
Yes.
overt now, and now you see police are those that are sworn to serve and protect, and more and more numbers are being caught.
There you go.
Are being caught killing people who don't look like them, and that's because of this technology. Everybody
Right.
everybody walks
Right.
around as a news reporter.
Right.
At
Everybody.
any moment, you can take out your smartphone and start filming a situation, and we see it all day, every day. There was a video yesterday where there was a cop who was trying to get. She was a white female cop. I don't know where she was from, but she was trying to get another police officer off beating somebody who was having a mental issue, and he was hitting him in the head. She pulled him off, and they're firing her. They suspended her for not going to the aid of a police officer while he was beating somebody who had no weapon, who was already down on the ground, and he was just beating him in the head. So, and the mother was screaming, and she's taking video, like, stop, and so this thing is going on, and now they're getting caught, and so now it's starting to show, oh, this is about race. Oh, would this happen if would they be going after Michael Brown or even Renisha McBride at the beginning?
Well,
if she was-
Renisha McBride, that trial made all across it made world history.
Yeah, but remember when in the days before the trial started, they started putting out the pictures of her Facebook and saying
Right.
she smoked weed. She had weed in her system, so that's the reason why she was banging on the door. They're going to do that to try to tear down this victim, so that when you get to court, because they're poisoning the jury pool, so that when this cop gets to court and a jury of his peers, so it's not going to be all African Americans sitting on that jury.
What do you guys think about the media? I think that ultimately the media, you mentioned poisoning or the jury pool, but I think the public as a whole are being seduced into these choosing of sides, and over time, I really look at the media as probably the most influential section of this, because of the blatant lies that are told, the fear that is continue to be promoted. Do you think that that there has to be some type of check that is put on the media?
I think that the media will not be checked.
You never do.
I think
Because
that
I'm the media.
because
Everybody's the media.
Because here's another thing.
The
You
law-
have to teach people to critically think. People don't know how to think critically. Okay, now, they said this over here, but let me check it out. Let me check some other things. People never some people don't go further than the first person they hear it from. It's just like gossip.
It's like the satirical articles on the internet. You see the one where Betty White died.
Right.
And, people sending it all around. Betty White died. No, at the end, it actually says it's a satirical article.
Right.
Just to make a...
Right. I
Continue to
think
read. Continue to read.
Right,
A
right.
cross-reference.
And people have to be able to choose the forms that they listen to. I worked with a guy, he was Caucasian, who all he listened to was Fox. So but he worked around black students and black people, but he believed anything Fox said because that was his only source of other information.
But is it reasonable to think that in a society where our overpasses over our freeways have to be guarded off so people don't jump off of them, we recognize that we got to protect people against themselves? Is it reasonable to think that people are going to be that objective, or they're going to have that amount of?
That's what I'm saying. They're not objective.
I'm gonna
they
agree
don't.
with Brenda on that one.
They don't critically think.
They're not.
It's about critical
They just. It's about critical thinking, Chris.
And
That's
you
what
never
it's
strike
about.
away the freedom
and,
of press.
and see, you
Period.
can't.
And I don't think you
It's
should,
not even a
because-
freedom of
because
press.
the-
It's a lie.
the
The ability
media
to
Not
serves-
all of it's a lie.
Right, the media
They
serves a
stretch
great
within. They stretch within what their beliefs. Now, Rupert Murdoch owns Fox News,
whole bunch of
and
lies.
the New York Post,
Both
and
black
they
and
want
white.
things slanted a certain way. President Obama can never be right. That's the whole thing. So they slant their news that way, and that's just the way it is. But
And
we
the same
got
thing
to
the
move
same-
on.
The same thing in MSNBC.
But it's causing
President
people.
Obama can't
It's
be wrong.
it's
Right.
playing a role in people losing their lives.
Same with
It
I
really
don't-
is.
But I don't,
It
you
is.
can't put-
Thinking-
You
But-
can't put that on the
Bottom line,
media.
you
I think you got to
that
think for
person
yourself.
has to think
The
for
media, like I said, the
themselves.
media
I understand,
serves-
but if you put that thought
They
in enough
serve-
people's head and they act on that thought,
the
you bear
media
some
serve-
responsibility
the
as well.
Media serves
Yeah,
You don't
they
think
do.
so?
Purpose. The media serves.
I disagree.
The media is there when we're not. We didn't know what was going on in
And I'm not saying
And
a
Ferguson,
blanket
but-
statement over all the media, but we all know the different outlets, right and left, that continue to promote just absurdities or so far stretches of the truth.
Yeah, we
That's
know
true.
that, Chris.
So-
but what I'm saying is, it all comes back to the
To the
viewer.
person.
It all
Sure
comes
does.
back to the viewer.
why I
That's
cut off my
I,
cable.
I teach that. That's
Yeah.
part of my major. The way that you can appeal to an
gonna turn it
audience to make them believe what you want, because you speak to them. You threaten their livelihood. That's
Right.
what they're doing. They're
Right.
threatening. But in the TV ad, Snyder says he's built a strong foundation and all of
Talking
this
about
stuff.
stretching the truth.
I talk about stretching the truth and so
This is where
forth.
your argument comes strong.
It's not even that. It's that little music in the background that's just irritating. I think I've seen that commercial maybe about 10 times
Well, I
yesterday.
turned from the commercial.
I want to see where he's getting his education funding. He
And where is
built
it going?
An extra $1 billion into.
So,
That's-
and where is it going? Where is that
that
education?
was
Because
just-
we have no money in the schools now. Where is
Does
that money
anybody
going?
vet this article? This was
You know,
crazy.
you know
Well,
what?
the government-
From a
This is
We
what
might
he's
vet the
saying.
governor.
you
That's
might
what we
not
didn't
feel
do
it
4
yet,
years ago.
but you will.
But I'm telling
I
you
know.
this.
Come on.
I'm
But that's
telling
just
you
hilarious,
this.
the
They
statement in
had
general.
they tried to get a Tea Party candidate in at their convention, and we're glad we didn't get
Which
the Tea
would've been
Party.
worse, yeah.
It would have been much worse than Snyder. Okay, the young man or the man got a 7-year prison sentence for 17-year prison sentence for killing Renisha McBride.
I think that
Not long enough.
Not long enough. That's not long enough. He'll serve at least 17
his
years.
justice served. Like I said we said last week, he got 17 years with 15 with the extra two tacked on it for the other violation. But you know, he got 17 years for killing somebody. What we wanted to see was justice being handled correctly, in which it wasn't in prior cases, like
Right.
the Trayvon Martin situation.
Right.
And things like that. The guy was guilty. There's no way you can even think your way out of that or talk your way out of it. He was just point blank guilty. It was a
Well,
right
tell me
decision.
this. Why was the judge acting like she was about to break down and cry boo-hoo when she gave the sentence, handed the sentence down? That really disturbed me.
Well, I didn't see that, but
Oh, yeah.
I take it because I mean she's empathetic. I mean I'm hoping that she was ready to cry and boohoo and feel bad because of the loss of life, because that's what she did say. You know, there's somebody who's not here today because he made bad decisions.
Yeah, well, I just think a judge shouldn't get, like that.
Well, it shows that they are human, too.
They're human, right?
Yeah, but-
Making these decisions, these life-affecting decisions. He's going to be gone for close to 20 years.
Well, I could see her
likely will
being
pass
empathetic,
in,
but I just don't see
prison.
the red eyes. I just don't see that, because the way I learned it, a judge should be somewhat just be able, neutral and everything. She was telling me a whole lot of stuff when she did that. But let's go on to the next topic, which is Kwame Kilpatrick seeks a new trial. What do you all think?
That's going to be a tough one. I don't think there are that many folks that's, swayed to his side on the appellate court, to overturn that sentence or grant him a new trial for that matter. I don't think there are factual questions into question that when I read this article stating that, hey, you got to have you should be granted a new trial, period. I don't think that it was enough factual information out there.
And was there and there also does not appear, according to what we read, is there was reversible error.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't have that, I mean you have to throw everything out there. And I've been accused of being a sympathizer in the past of Kwame Kilpatrick. Did he get a fair trial? It seemed fair to me. I don't see where the things that he's pointing out is trying to say where the things went, where it was not fair to him, where they, where the agents were able to speak at length on issues that they may not have. I don't know if that's reversible or not.
And
The
there
appellate court will have to
wasn't
figure
there
it
a paper trail on some of this stuff?
out. On his acts?
I think there was
Yeah.
testimony.
Yeah, but that's not
Mostly.
where that's not what he's not, talking about the merits of it. He's talking about as far as his appeal is concerned, he didn't have the right lawyers.
And he thought his lawyer, yes,
You
he
know.
thought his lawyers had
And
conflicts
so
of interest
that's-
and
but
everything.
That's not saying I wasn't guilty. That's saying I didn't do these things. That's saying the process wasn't right. So
Quite
that's
frankly,
what
these are lawyers he hired, and it's not like you have lawyers out there to handle many types of cases
all across the spectrum.
all across this area.
Yep.
So you can't really say it's a hard argument to make, especially you trying to look for a new trial. That's an extreme stretch. I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, I think he's going to probably be fighting for this for the duration. And you don't blame a person for fighting and
No,
trying.
I don't. I would probably do the same thing.
Oh, dude,
Me
And
too.
and he's a
it's-
lawyer, and he's a
and-
lawyer, so he looked at everything and said,
and,
"This is what I'm going to do on my appeal."
You know.
And every person who's convicted of crime has that right, so he should take that right as far as he can take it.
And I think as far as for the city of Detroit, this wouldn't be a good thing. I think that Detroit, this was emotionally draining for the city. It's a huge black eye, and we've somehow been able to get some momentum, some interest, and I think that that's where the attention needs to be. I think that obviously from his perspective, this is his life, but I'm talking from the citizens and the supporters and fans of the city. This isn't really something that we want to see rehashed again, just because of the tension that it would create locally. We already have some national stuff going on. We even have some local stuff with the McBride situation, but this would just be a stale smell that we thought we had kind of gotten
That's
past.
a good point.
Yeah, good point,
But-
Chris. Good point. I just imagine, I can't exactly put my feet in his shoes, but I can imagine sitting there in a jail and you never thought you'd be here. I mean, never in a million years did you think you'd be here. And that's what we have to raise our kids with, knowing what consequences look like. Or this can happen to you. And you know that those of you who are, you're a parent, and a lot of you, you tell your kids, look, this can happen if you do this. We're always telling them. And I feel for him sitting in that jail, but my mother said, you make your bed hard, you lay hard.
Then you got to wonder. I mean, this is the family that it came from, a political.
Yes, I do know.
A political silver spoon or gold spoon in his mouth of privilege. This might be what they taught him how to be a
Do you
politician.
think this might be the chickens coming home to roost?
This very well. I mean, I'm not saying that they say go out and steal. That of course they wouldn't say that, but they did make it possible for him to do the type of things that he did, and it does not appear, because his father was on trial with him, it does not appear that anybody grabbed him by the arm, grabbed him by his neck, and said, cut it out. Not at least where his parents are concerned. So
Well, his
I
dad,
don't know.
his
don't
dad
know.
was kind of getting some of the benefits from his
So
position.
then you got to wonder.
And I want to remind you guys once again, he had a plea deal, 15 years. He could have taken it. I think it was 13 to 15 years. He
Could've
could
got out
have
in
taken
7.
that too. So he opted out to fight off the charges that was presented against him. So, and
That's
he
all-
got the 28-year sentence.
Well, let's talk about this for a minute, the next one. And that is, yesterday there were protests across the country with the workers from fast food chains wanting the $15 an hour. And in Detroit, they arrested about 30 people over on the east side. And I think that store is black owned, by the way, that particular McDonald's where a lot of them worked. And what do you think? Do you think they'll get their $15?
They'll never see that. the 15.
I don't think they
Not
will
for fast
either.
food.
No.
I can understand a living wage. I can understand, $10 an hour. I don't understand the reason. I don't know why 15 is the key. I don't understand.
I think
why
that that's a
is the key.
strategic number to shoot for that number and get something a little bit. I mean, obviously, you're not going to ask for exactly what you want, negotiation 101. You're going to ask for a little bit more with the hopes of getting
Right.
somewhere in between where you are and what you asked for. But I think that what bothers me isn't their organizing and wanting more of a living wage. Is that I don't see the organization as far as how to move them from these type of jobs.
That's-
Asking
thank
about
you. That's what I was thinking
why
about.
can't we get some type of tuition assistance or any, what I see are people who have settled in on staying fast food workers their whole life.
While I don't know who was talking, was it Darren or what? While you were talking about this, Robert, I was saying, do they want to make McDonald's their career?
Yeah.
See,
And what's interesting is to see that, in the city of Detroit, you may not have that many officers out there to make $15 an hour. You have some guys there to make that, around that,
Rather start.
that's putting their life
On the line.
on the line for the rest of the city.
And I'm going to be honest, if you are an owner, you could say, well, we're not going to pay you $15. We got $10. We'll give it to these high school students out
That's
there.
what I was about to say. There I don't think, there is a segment of our society that did not receive the type of education that's going to push them forward. So tuition assistance is not going to help them. And the jobs that that they can get are these types of jobs. That's just a reality of that. I mean, that there are people.
but it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to stay that way.
It doesn't have to stay that way, but
It
does,
seems
but
like some
seemingly
people's
are
mindset,
I'm not
it-
talking about the mindset. I'm talking about the people there are people who absolutely need. There are people who are, like, for instance, ex-offenders. They're not going to be able to come out and get tuition assistance and get the types of things. And so so we're telling them, go find a job anywhere you can find it, and they still have to live, or they're going to become offenders
Well,
again.
America, the United States is like a ladder when it comes to finances. Yeah, you start at the first rung, whatever minimum wage is, but the whole goal is not to raise that rung, but it's to move to the next rung, to climb.
I
And
get
so
that,
we
but-
need to educate people as how to not have a ladder where we just constantly raise the rung, but learn how to climb. And the way you do that is you become more valuable. So we teach them how to not ask for more, but to become more.
You're right, but those who can ask for more, who cannot get there, do we want them? Do we want them to go back out and offend, and so they can, so they can have a
They have
right?
to work harder.
They got.
It's not working.
They have to they
become
have to
more
get-
valuable.
They have to.
They can work hard as
if
they want.
wanna
They still
stay
gonna get
stagnant
that
in
minimum
situation,
wage.
Then they're going to have to pick up those 2 or 3 jobs to keep their head above water.
I agree with that, but these are the type of jobs that they can only get. I'm not saying make McDonald's, your 9 to 5. I'm not saying that, but if these are the types of jobs that they can get, and no one is hiring, if no one's hiring persons who have offended, I mean, which is a large segment
Yeah.
of our population, then what are they going to do?
If McDonald's was smart right now, and I believe, my personal opinion, if I was, one of the big wigs at McDonald's, I would put out a new tier program, and it would have different wage scales. That if you did this, then you're looking at this wage scale, and so it would be opportunity there for individuals who.
And there should be a
No, but they would
criteria.
have to better themselves.
I kind of can see that, because there could be a criteria. You have to have done this. Are
It's
you
every
doing
job.
this? Are you doing that? And so forth. There's a way. There's a way.
McDonald's, I think, is handling this terribly, though, in the sense that I really don't hear anything. It's almost as if, I can see the corporate scene where they're looking out the window. There's these protesters out
thinking
there,
like, I know.
and they're just looking
reason
like
why-
they'll go away.
The reason
Okay.
why in the state of Michigan, they've already
already started
I'm pretty sure a
looking.
lot of their lobbyists were talking to the state legislators and was like, hey, I do this for you guys. You guys handle this situation. And they did. They raised the minimum wage to $8.15 right now, and it's supposed to go up
To $10.
to $10
$9.20.
over a 5-year period. And it was suppressed. For
My
a while.
first job, I made $1.15 an hour. $1.15 2015. It was at Ford Hospital. It was my summer job. And I was so happy. In 2 weeks, I brought home $70. And I said, oh man, I am rich. But but I was a kid. I didn't have a family and so forth and so on. These people, we have to start letting people know that they can do more. I kind of go with Chris, but we're running out of time and we got to get over to these other subjects. Michael Sams. That was interesting. What do you think? He didn't make the team. Now he's on a practice squad of the Dallas Cowboys.
As far as him not making the team, it was a long shot anyway. He was a 7th round pick. But
Wait. To inform the audience, Michael Sams was the player who announced he was gay. He went to University before the draft. I would have held on to that. I mean, that's not right, but I would have held on to it until after I got drafted because they say he could have been drafted earlier.
Yeah, he went to Missouri and he came out and he was a 7th round pick. It was a mercy pick.
But they said he could have been a higher pick.
He wasn't that good.
And I mean,
he
quite
was
frankly,
not that good.
With the, I believe he was with the Rams. I believe that's the institution that actually drafted him. But,
Stop.
But he, oh man, don't do that. But he wasn't that. He didn't make the team. He wasn't that good. And they try to strategize and think of different ways they can utilize him. And he didn't fit their skill set that they actually needed. He
was on television. They put one of their games on, one of the preseason games on, and they even highlight him. Oh, here's Sam. Put a little picture on him, a little, spotlight on him. The guy wasn't good.
Oh, okay.
He just wasn't good.
I don't think he wasn't up, and then he dropped his weight to try to gain some speed. He didn't gain speed, and he was too small for the positions they were actually looking for. I think he dropped 15 pounds, 15 to 20, really? 15 to 20 pounds to try to pick up some speed, and he just couldn't do it, and they couldn't utilize him.
Well, wasn't he good in college?
Well,
this is the professional.
And
this is different than college.
Well, I do know.
Yeah,
I do know.
Everybody's good in professional. Missouri.
The speed, the strength. When I went from playing ball at a high school level to walk on, when I played at Tech, it just the guard that I was scrimmaging against was 6'5", 6'6", the point guard, and so. What happens when you take these jumps from high school to collegiate, from collegiate to professional, everyone gets bigger, everyone gets smarter, faster, stronger.
Well, I know
and
that.
And so at the end of the day, I think that this is only a story because of his sexual orientation. But I think he's going to land well. He's positioned himself to have other opportunities.
So did Dallas. That was Dallas's issue. Dallas, everyone knows.
And they had a walk-on player who did better than Michael Sams.
And he, because one sports show I was listening to yesterday said that Michael Sams' jersey sold 7% higher than other jerseys during the preseason.
Really?
That's the real hot Sams jersey.
Okay.
So I'm going to push right past that.
I don't even believe
so,
it.
Rams, he about to have fun.
He's about to go to the Big D. And so, that's where they're going to sell his jersey. That's what they call Dallas.
Oh, football season is here again. Okay, this young man, he said the Big D.
That's what they call Dallas. Big D.
Well, Josh Shaw, the young man who said he goes to USC. Wasn't he a star of the team? Talking about mess. He claimed he got hurt. His ankles got hurt or something when he was trying to save his nephew from drowning. But it ends up he jumped off the balcony or something of his girlfriend's apartment. They had an argument.
Well, there was no criminal activity. I'll let everybody else talk about it.
I found this article kind of
crazy.
strange. Well, actually, the whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
He's a star player, and I'm not for sure what the actual backdrop is or why he break 2 ankles or something like that. But he's going to be out for a couple of games. But the school or the team suspended him for the whole year. I think it's his senior year.
For the whole year?
Yeah, I believe it's the whole year. He's out.
Wow.
Indefinite. So.
Well, if it's indefinite, they could bring him back.
Well, it can. But I think they made a decision to kick him off the team altogether because he lied about the situation. I thought it was kind of harsh Now he did put the team's winning record on trial there, but I mean it's really.
But he's not coming clean on what went on.
But
he's not talking about
let's
what went on.
let's keep in mind that one of the chief portals of information with this story TMZ. So this isn't a story of a whole lot of import. This is a young guy. He did something stupid, and it's.
We don't know if he did something stupid.
Well,
I
he
thought he did something
jumping off of a balcony
He may have been
when you
trying
got
to save his
stared.
life.
If the stairs were on fire, jumping off the balcony would have been smart.
Well,
But,
somebody had a firearm.
I think
jumped
it
off
was.
the balcony.
I think it was a dumb mistake for a young kid to make, but I didn't.
The
think
lying
it resulted,
compounded.
I don't think it was
The lying
resulted in a
compounded.
whole year's.
I think
suspension.
not telling people, not telling the team, and not telling the
They said
coaches.
the team ratted them out on it. The team actually found out what actually happened, and they came to the coaches like, "Hey, this guy lying about what actually happened."
But doesn't that tell you something maybe about how he was in that locker room and
You're
whether he
right,
was
man.
liked or
You're
not?
right.
There was a quote in here where one of the teammates said, "We're done with him." What? What are you talking about?
Oh
son?
God,
is
we
it?
got to wrap it up. Gee, we did. I'll get to that other topic with the girls next week. And ladies and gentlemen, I want you to have a wonderful weekend. I want you guys to have a wonderful weekend. Sky's the limit. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Therefore, sky is the limit. And be good, please. And Chris, I need that doorbell. Okay,
Coming right up.
we'll see you next week. Thanks,
All right, guys.
Michelle. Oh, there's Derek.
Man.